Okay, yeah, so I'm just going to really
All right,
quickly
back
drop
to
that
it.
this is the Bealcast. I'm Robert Beal. I'm a loan officer here in Kansas City. And instead of just talking about mortgages all the time, I found that I have like better conversations when we just talk about like other stuff. And so tonight I have Deana with us, who owns Core Coffee and Eatery in KC, Core Realty KC as well. And then I have Charity Olin, who is one of my bosses at Fountain Mortgage. And so we were just talking about severance. And so the kind of the premise of it is the main character like had some tragedy in his life. And so he was able to get a job where when he's at work, he doesn't have to like he doesn't experience whatever is going on outside of his life. So he just like gets up, goes to work every day and just like works as if it's like a different universe. And then he goes home.
His home self has no idea what his work self does, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, because he has
Wow.
some sort of tragedy. Can you, Deana, can you imagine a situation where your home self didn't know what your work self was doing?
No, I can't imagine because I'm always my work self. It seems like
Yeah.
often
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, and why is that? Why are you always your work self?
because I have a coffee shop 7 days a week. Also, we do real estate, so that's in the evenings or on the weekends for sure. So it's just work constant 7 days a week,
Yeah.
like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's not that I love it. It's just finding that balance. I haven't found it yet, but
I'm not
searching for it.
I'm not completely certain that the end goal is to actually find that.
Well, that might be true.
So, but I mean, so Charity, I mean, what about you? What if you could shut it off, or do you shut it off?
I do shut it off. I worked a lot of years where I was on 7 days a week, or it just never ended, and I purposefully sought out a role where I can shut it off.
Yeah.
So I do, for the most part. I mean, I think about it,
Yeah.
but I'm not actively working.
Right. And so what is your role at Fountain Mortgage?
My role at Fountain Mortgage in title is Vice President, Sales and Marketing.
Yeah.
In reality, it is, leading a team of salespeople, mostly being their therapist and hopefully inspirational uplifter. But I also, unload the dishwasher and order the paper towels. So I kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's true. Which, when you are a small business, which I think
Yep.
we are relatively, I mean, that is, you end up wearing a lot of different hats. But, for me, what I've sort of realized over the last couple of years, well, really the last year that I've been at Fountain, is that I am in a position where I can almost pretty much structure my work to be no different, except for having to get online from time to time, but to be no different than like just how I'd want to spend the day. So we met, I met your husband at open house, came in
Right.
here, and I thought, oh man, these are going to be the easiest realtors for me to work with because I like to drink coffee. I'm going to be in there like all the time. And so, but I would come in here, and I just would find myself in these like interesting conversations with also, like I've told Danny before, this place is like Sesame Street. And so, but I mean, this location, I go to other coffee shops, but basically I've figured out a way, and I'm working on it, but to make what I do just every day be like sort of the same thing, which is just going around, meeting people, and sort of, building relationships and hoping that they'll do a mortgage with me. I mean, that's a big part of it. And so when I talk about, this being like Sesame Street, the community down here, were you aware of this coffee shop before you moved into this area, or how are you connected to this area?
Right. So we live here in Pendleton Heights on
Okay.
Olive Street, just a few doors down. We've lived here for 24 years, almost 25 years.
Yeah.
And I was an art director for 17 years, so I had a different career. But as far as this coffee shop goes, yes, we were aware of it because we're the ones that talked the Whitmer brothers into opening this coffee shop because we needed one in the neighborhood. It just so happens that it opened about the same time as PH Coffee opened, which is fine,
Yeah.
around 2020. And we told them if they needed us to manage it, we would do that, but they didn't want to do that. Then 3 years later, they gave us 1 week to give a decision on whether or not we wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
So yes, I was aware. I'm going to be honest, I didn't come here that often. I did a few
Yeah.
times, but not real often because it didn't have the vibe that you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not putting anybody down. It just didn't have that vibe.
Right.
It didn't have that personal vibe. And it may be because, they had employees here. They didn't have the owner here.
Yeah.
So that may be part of it. But so when we took over, I wanted it to be a place where somebody could come and feel so comfortable that they felt like that they were at home or in their office or in their living room. I just wanted them to feel like when they leave here, they've made a friend.
Yeah.
And so the first week we took over, I think it was the first week. Yeah, friends of ours were selling, having an estate sale. So I went over to visit them and to see what they had to offer. Well, the sign that hangs above the door outside right now, it says, enter as, what does it say, Danny?
Enter as strangers.
Enter as strangers, leave as friends. Sorry.
That's okay.
Enter as strangers, leave as friends. And when I saw that, it was propped against their door. And I said, oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And I said, I want that. And so
made me
they,
stop it.
right. So I hung that above our door because that's what our mantra is. That's what I want everybody to feel like when they come in. I'm not saying everybody walks away feeling like that, but that's the goal.
I have a hard time believing somebody who like walks out of here like irritated because they were at Core Coffee. I think most of the time, I mean, I come in here and I do, I do it like every week. I come in here and I think I'm going to get some coffee. I'm going to do something. I'm going to go on about my day, and it's 3 hours later, and I'm still sitting here.
Well, and often you and I are talking
Yeah,
for at least 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you always been in Kansas City, or where are you from originally?
I grew up in Oklahoma and Texas.
Okay.
I never really had a hometown.
Yeah.
And my husband grew up in Kansas. So we moved here, I guess it'd be about 32 years ago. And we got our master's at UMKC.
Okay.
And the goal was to get our master's and then move to New York City.
Okay.
Life happened,
Yeah.
and we're still here. So it's
I
good.
mean, the cost of living is a little lower here.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Charity, I mean, how did you end up here? How did you end up in Kansas City?
I was born in Wichita, and then like you don't really have a hometown. We moved. I never went to the same school for 2 years in a row until I was in high school. So a lot of moving.
Yep. Yeah,
And-
junior and senior year were my first 2 years.
Yeah.
To be in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ended up back in Wichita to graduate high school, but didn't move there till later, and then moved from there to Arizona because I hate winter.
Yeah.
And now I'm back here, so I'll have to explain that. But met my now husband in Arizona. We moved to Chicago, and then basically had a kid and thought, we'll never. What are we going to do? Buy a house in the suburbs because we were living right in the city. I don't want to spend 2 hours commuting. I don't want to pay $1 million for a little home. So we just quit our jobs and moved here with no jobs and didn't know a single person, had no network. I thought about being a real estate agent, but I thought I'll never be able to do it because I don't know anybody. Now, if I would have done that back in 2006.
You'd not be returning my calls.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be blowing you off.
Excellent. So what were you doing? So what did you do? I mean, what kind of your career path? What were you doing when you were in Arizona?
I was in hospitality, so
Okay.
I worked for a big resort, and my husband worked there as well. Didn't know him there. We met there.
Yeah.
He was a chef, and I was first in the sales department and then running the concierge department. So I called that experience in my life. I was 28 years old. I was running a team of 12 in the concierge department of a 5-star luxury resort. So I am being hosted by every restaurant because they want me to recommend the restaurant. I'm
Yeah.
being hosted by every tour operator. I was living the $50,000 millionaire lifestyle.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
I had cars to drive me wherever I needed to go. It was just a really fun time. And
Yeah.
then my husband, who was doing his externship there, he went to the Culinary Institute in upstate New York and was doing his externship there. We met in the elevator. And
wow.
had I don't want to say, we had a seasonal, it was supposed to be a seasonal fling. In Arizona, you work at the resort during high season, then you
Yeah.
might go. So I was supposed to go to Dubai after that
Oh,
assignment
wow.
was over.
Wow.
But I met him instead, and we ended up life happened.
Well, I mean, I can tell you from experience that if you get involved with the chef,
Yes.
lock that shit down. So, I mean, that's a skill, that's an art that you don't appreciate until you actually have it.
Yeah.
And so where did you meet Eric?
We met in Hays, Kansas,
Hays,
where we were
Kansas.
getting our undergraduate degree.
Hays, Kansas.
Yeah, this tiny town.
The idea of you and Eric in Hays, Kansas strikes me as
Odd?
as interesting. Yes.
Yeah, it is odd. I moved there because my parents divorced when I was 21, and it did a number on me. So I left OSU, Oklahoma State University, and I moved there because my mother had moved there with her new husband. So I moved there to be by her,
Right.
and then I ended up meeting Eric, and then we graduated from college there, and then we decided to move here, and then once I got my master's at UMKC, which was in art history, then I was an art director for a program for 17 years, and so it did well for me. It was. Yeah, and then Eric, he got his master's in graphic design, and he had an undergraduate in interior design.
Okay.
But he ended up managing a Bombay store, which they're now defunct. I mean, they're gone.
Okay.
But and then he
I remember
became a
those
realtor.
in the mall.
Yes,
Right? They were in the mall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was off in Leawood,
Yeah.
off the town center. Is that
Town
what it's
center,
called? Town
yeah.
center. Yeah. And so. Anyway, so he ended up becoming a realtor because his boss at the time, or his soon-to-be boss, had come into the store and loved his sales pitch, the way he worked with people, and so he got him to come and get his real estate license and work for him, which is RE/MAX.
Yeah.
And so he did that for quite a few years until he and I decided that it'd probably be better for him to launch out on his own.
Yeah.
So that's how we developed Core Realty.
I think it's interesting that you are both creatives, like you and Eric, but I also think,
Yeah.
so, when I was thinking about the two of you, it felt like a natural fit to have a conversation with, because, I mean, that's what you both are. Charity, your role is a little different as far as, what we offer for like realtors and loan officers and brand building, that type of stuff, because you're working a number of different brands at any given time, where, I think, and I don't know, maybe you have other focuses, but I know that I can feel that you put focus on building this brand. And so I think that I'm at a point where I sort of look at anything in life and I consider it to be like art, where maybe I didn't used to. And so the question I had for you is, do you consider a brand something that you build, or does a brand build itself? And I'll ask you that, Charity.
I think a lot of people think of a brand when they think of the word as, maybe color scheme or a logo or fonts. And I think it's something different. I think that your brand, if we're talking a personal brand, or if, a realtor or a loan officer, it's really important to have your own personal brand. And it's cultivated, sure, but it should come from a place of authenticity. So you can't, I don't think, build a good brand if, Robert, you said, my brand is going to be Cat Rescue Republican Club. I don't know, like just pick something that's not you,
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So I think it comes from who you are, what your passions are, and then figuring out how to package that, cultivate that, but being who you are consistently. To when people see you, when they think of you, it all makes sense because it is who you are, but it's also purposeful.
Yeah. I think people will look at other examples of people in their field having success, and in some ways they'll try to kind of like replicate that through how they brand, how they present themselves. And we had a conversation, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about when you were first got into real estate, or Eric got into real estate, people were concerned about how you looked or how you dressed. And I think one of the nice things about like today, modern society, is those expectations have kind of like dropped away. Because if I had to be in a suit and a tie right now, I would be miserable.
Yes.
That would not be me being authentic.
Agreed.
But I will say, I mean, my brand, you played a big role in like kind of like getting my brand going, because I can remember having a conversation with you and you were like, hey, maybe if you cleaned up a little bit. And the cleaning up was, putting on a jacket, which my wife had been telling me to do for a while, and I needed somebody else to tell me. But I think that it's not just appearance. I think brand to me is how people feel, how you make people feel as well, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what people remind you of or remember about you. And so when I look around the coffee shop, and I mean, it's intentional, right? This is an artistic hub here. You have art on the walls. You focus and feature like local artists. And I mean, is that something that you've brought to this coffee shop?
Yes, when we first took over or bought the business, the first thing I did that week was put art on the wall, because
Yeah.
they had some art on the wall when we first took over. I mean, they took it away with them, but but it wasn't a lot. And I thought, you know what, I want to feature local artists and give them an avenue to express themselves and show people what they have. I think that came from my art background because when I was an art director, one of the programs that I helped manage and run was My Arts, which was a program for all at-risk youth. But part of the component of that was, there's therapeutic component, but there was also a component where we would work with them on designing their artwork and then also hanging it in the visual studio at the front of the building. And then we would also work with them on how to price it, how to sell it. We'd have youth shows, so people would come in, they could purchase the artwork, and then part of the proceeds would go back to the youth.
Yeah.
I think it was half. I think that's right, 50-50. So that was the first thing I wanted to do when I took over here, because I've always wanted to own an art gallery and a coffee shop.
So just why not do it all,
So
in one shot?
let's just
Absolutely.
do it, right? And so yes, and that's worked out really well. I mean, the artists have kind of come to me, which is great. I started off with several artists that I already knew, because I know a lot of artists in the city, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think about just the artists that I've met since I've been here. Okay, so obviously I've met Danny. I've met a former opera singer, right?
Yes.
Like we know somebody who writes like erotic literature, like and percussionist. And I know there's this building right here. It's an artistic hub. That's the thing that I enjoy about this is I feel like I come in here and at any given moment I can meet somebody, and I've had so many different relationships as a result just spin off. But I think when you're in here, there's definitely a vibe, there's definitely a feel, and it's consistent. Whether any of the employees, anybody that I'm talking to, and so do you think? Is all of that very intentional? Do the details matter? Or are there some times where you find yourself and I just did this with Charity the other day where I'm agonizing over something, and at the end of the day it's something that impacts me or maybe I'm worried about, but it really isn't going to make a difference. Do the details matter?
I think they do matter. I think so back to the branding thing. I think the branding comes from your heart, and I know with me it's all relationship building. Yeah. And that's where the details, I think, would come in, building those relationships, because within not just these walls, but just within your own personal walls, building different relationships that carry you through life and kind of define who you are a little bit. You allow it to define who you are. But yes, I think the details do matter. I think that we can get lost in them sometimes, in the planning, because I want this to be perfect but that's why I give the artists also free reign as to hang their own artwork. Yeah. Because I don't want to dictate that.
Yeah.
But yeah.